Hello and welcome. Thank you for so much for joining us, and thank you so much to Ben and Purple for being here to help with this very important topic.
Hi, how's it going?
How are you, Purple?
Hello. Okay.
And I'm expecting Jenny Morgan to come and join us. Probably she might be running a bit late, and hopefully she'll get here soon. I see a number of people in the chat already, and I'm glad to see that. We have Beelzebub, Sandy, Burke, Maya Atkinson, Skits Crasher, John, and Johnny Rapine. Thank you all for coming. I really think we're going to have a good show here today. This show came about because I was on Twitter and I saw an activist post a comment about a bill that has been proposed in Oklahoma. It has not been passed. That would end gender affirming care for all adults. And I saw a couple of people commenting on this post and saying, no, this is youth, not adults, right? And she said, look at the bill. It doesn't say youth. And so I went and checked into that bill and some of the publicity around that bill, and she's right. And there's been a lot of publicity in Oklahoma over a different proposed bill, which is, I forgot if it's called I think they're calling it the guillotine bill or something like that, which would ban all gender affirming care for people 25 and under. And the theory behind that is that anyone over, that the brain finishes developing at age 25. So if you're 26, then you're old enough to make a decision, your own healthcare decisions. But here is the bill that I was talking about. Okay, I've got it on screen now. All right. Oh, let me get the text of that bill. It's 4 pages long. And there we go. Okay. It says an act introducing to public program defining terms prohibiting public funding for provider of gender transition procedures, allowing ineligible provider to reapply under certain conditions. Okay. They've got their definitions: provider, affiliate. Gender transition procedures means any medical or surgical device, including but not limited to physician services, inpatient and outpatient hospital services, prescribed drugs, or related to gender transition that seeks to alter or remove physical or anatomical characteristics or features, instill or create physiological or anatomical characteristics that resemble a sex different from the individual's biological sex, including but not limited to medical services that provide puberty blocking drugs, cross-sex hormones, or other mechanisms to promote the development of feminizing or masculinizing features in the opposite biological sex, so on, so on. They do make an exception for people with medical conditions due to certain sex developments, but here, this is the key. No provider. What did you want to say, Purple?
Well, what you're reading in the beginning, something jumped out at me that said no public funds for.
Right.
So are they prohibiting it altogether, or are they just saying that the state Medicaid will not pay for these procedures?
Yeah, that was my question
they
too.
Intended. That I'm sure that is the intent of the bill, but that's why I would say this is the key. No provider shall be eligible for reimbursement through Medicaid or any other federal or state program or any other funding from any political subdivision of this state, including but not limited to cities, towns, municipalities, counties, directly or subcontract with any other party if that provider or any affiliate of that provider performs gender transition procedures. So what it does is if you provide any gender transition procedure, you are barred, your entire facility and all of your affiliates are barred from receiving any government funding.
So the only way, like, I could see a loophole here, a very awful loophole, in that if you by yourself, or anyone, if you started practice with other people that did concierge medicine and did not take insurance, or a cash pay only, you
Right.
could still get it, but that's limiting it only to really super rich people. So if you're really super
Exactly.
rich, you can still get it. But anybody
Yes.
else that relies on not being super rich,
Mhm.
you're not getting it.
Well, but here's the thing. If my doctor gives gender affirming care to a different patient, now my doctor is barred from receiving any Medicare or any Medicaid
Yeah.
funding at all for any patient.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So what we got to do then is we have to start a concierge medicine business, keep the somehow keep the cost super low so we don't need any public funding, and just provide gender affirming care to all of Oklahoma, and then they can't do anything about it because it wouldn't be publicly funded.
True, but what I'm really worried about is
Yeah.
if this bill passes,
Yeah.
it is going all doctors are going to except for the concierge, as you point
Mm.
out, are going to have to end all gender affirming care or risk losing not just their gender patients, but all their patients.
Mhm.
Yeah, they lose their whole
Because
practice. Yeah.
right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then if they want to get it back, here's what it says they have to do. Um is it where is that? No provider should be eligible. Okay. Any providers found to be ineligible for reimbursement or other funding pursuant to this section will be able to reapply after a period of 5 years and a showing that their affiliates are no longer participate in gender transition procedures. So that was the other part of it, is that if you lose your funding under this bill, you are barred from any government funding for 5 years minimum.
Yeah, and realistically in our system, I can't see any medical clinic that could keep functioning if
Mhm.
they're not able to,
Yeah.
even take Medicare patients.
Mhm. Sandy asked, "Are they limiting private insurance?" No, they are not limiting private insurance. A doctor can still receive private insurance. However, all doctors receive some public monies, either through, like I said, Medicare, Medicaid, whatever. And so, just having one gender affirming patient bars you from receiving any public funds.
Well, and I don't
It's
know about
wild that.
Oklahoma. Sorry, what was that,
Oh,
Ben?
go for it. Go for it.
I don't know about Oklahoma, but some states actually require any practice above a certain size to take a certain number of Medicare patients.
Mm,
That's a really good
that's
point.
Bree says, I suspect this is going to pull estradiol off the ACA health insurance and marketplace drug list. Is that an estrogen drug, Ben?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's estrogen.
Okay.
But like my thought was, you're it's wild that they hate trans people so much
Mhm.
that they're going to put the entire healthcare system of their state on the line and say,
Exactly.
well, if you're going to treat trans people, then you can't treat anybody at
Anybody.
all. Like, so
Right.
you're going to take away, and I'm not positive, but I'd be confident in saying that Oklahoma has not enough physicians. Just like, I mean, most states in the United States do not have enough physicians as it is, and people are already going without healthcare. But now to just pull some and deny more people healthcare just because you don't like trans people. Like, I mean, they hate trans people, but they also hate everybody else in their state. They just hate their people. Like, what is up with you,
Well,
Oklahoma?
and they're saying any doctor and their affiliates.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because
And
they're
Mhm.
pulling whole practices.
well, what's
Right.
going to happen
Yeah.
in a lot of rural areas is that there may only be one clinic per county.
Mhm.
But, if somebody at one hospital treats a trans patient, those are probably all a single network under the same umbrella. So that could wind up with, like a dozen counties all losing their only health provider.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Johnny Rapine has a good comment. If
Mhm.
any Oklahomans need trans care, Akron, Ohio has a great pride clinic. Come split rent with me while you get the ball rolling or removed.
Ohio is making trans care more difficult as well, though.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Ohio's not a super safe state right now.
Mhm.
And I agree with
And
this, Maya.
and Bree is right about this. The Fed will challenge the state's power to enforce this since the ACA was a federal act. Yeah. Um, I don't see how Oklahoma can bar people from receiving federal money. They can bar them from receiving state money, but yeah, that bill is absolutely bonkers. I found this other article about the same guy that introduced that bill. It says Oklahoma lawmaker files multiple bills to fight destructive woke gender ideology. Senator Nathan Dam, or Dam, I'm not sure how you, that damn senator from Broken Arrow has filed several legislations that he said will fight the dangerous and destructive woke gender ideology of the left. I thought this was funny. This actually comes straight from his press release because I read his press release and Fox that this report came from just basically copied the press release. For years, Senate leadership has dismissed the threat of the left's gender ideology that opposes to our state, Dom said. However, with instances of family-friendly drag shows and drag queen story hours and the Discover of Gender Transition program at OU Medical, it's past time we stop this craziness. Please tell me how this is going to change drag queen story hour
Right.
or family-friendly drag shows. What does this even have to do with that?
It's wild that these legislators decide that they get a place in somebody else's uh professional relationship with their healthcare provider. Like,
Yeah.
are you gonna go into the room with a kid with type 1 diabetes and say, well, actually, I disagree with this drug, so you can't get this? Like, that's none
Mhm.
of your business to be there. Are you gonna be in the
Well,
room when
um,
somebody else has a heart attack and you're like, "Oh, nope, sorry. I'm gonna get in this because I just don't like what you're doing." Like, it's ridiculous to think that you do that with any other medical condition. So, like, why are you gonna step in even for this and with abortion as well? Like, can, can people the amount of Dunning-Kruger in our system right now is, I mean, it's always been bad. But
Mhm.
right now we're seeing a lot of examples of just how bad it's gotten. Like, you have no business being in that relationship. And if you have a problem with what the medical guidelines are, you don't go to the government about it. You go to the medical board. Those are the people that have the expertise, and they're overseeing people on how they follow the guidelines. So it's just wild to me.
The big question I have for you, Ben, is
Mm.
what I saw happen here in Alabama. In Alabama, they passed a law saying that no one under the age of 20, and they said 20 because 19 is still a minor in Alabama, believe it or not, um, it can have gender affirming care, and that they specified surgery, hormones, and puberty blockers. When that law passed, there was a large group of doctors that went to court and said, "We cannot obey this law. If we obey this law, we will violate our Hippocratic oath because we have patients that we are currently treating. And if we simply stop treating them, they are going to be harmed. That's a violation of our Hippocratic oath. You've put us in a place where we have to choose between our following the law. The court agreed with the doctors and enjoined the law, and it's still under injunction. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. It is a violation of the Hippocratic Oath because the data, the best data that we have, suggests that gender affirming care saves lives and it reduces suffering. So you cannot go against the medical gold standard of care and then expect the doctors to have to comply with it, because you shouldn't have to make that decision. The gold standard of care should always be, I mean, it is the gold standard at that time, and it might change over time with what we learn, but that shouldn't change until we have data that says that it needs to change. So, I absolutely agree with the doctors in that state because you're tying their hands. It's like saying somebody comes in, again with the heart attack example, somebody comes into the hospital with a heart attack. They're like, oh, well, I know how to deal with this, but I just can't because the government says that they don't
Defibrillators
like,
are illegal.
yeah, they don't
Yeah.
like defibrillators and they don't like cath labs. So I guess you're going to die. Like, a doctor, probably a good doctor is not going to just let somebody die because of a law, but you should not put them in that boat to have to decide that.
Mm-hmm. Are you seeing that in any other areas of medicine other than abortion and transgender care?
Uh, not really.
Okay.
Because even with the other areas that seem to be taken by conspiracy theorists, like vaccines and things, we still have those being legal, and we still have the government largely on the side of the standard of care. So yeah, it's really it's abortion and gender affirming care that's all that I've seen this kind of thing happen.
And religion is what is pushing both of these. And this is why I am an anti-theist.
Mhm.
I don't just say live and let live. I say stop believing anything. If you're going, I do think it's okay for people to believe whatever they want to believe, provided they keep their beliefs to themselves. But if they think that I need to live according to their beliefs, that's when I say no. You don't get to tell me how to live because you believe a certain thing.
Agreed.
Yeah, nobody can be basing laws or public policy on their religion.
What are your feelings, Purple?
Well, I'm tending to get to be more and more of an anti-theist the more of the stuff I hear. Just because, I don't really care what anybody believes, but nobody should be, basing public policy or laws based on their religion. I'm in Minnesota, which I feel is a fairly safe state for this.
Mm-hmm.
So I figure even if this gets into a hysteria, it's probably going to take a few extra years to get here. But yeah, I'm certainly worried about some of my friends in other states with some of the just bullshit things that are going through like this.
Here's a really interesting comment from Bemilzebub. My fiance has life-threatening cysts the doctors will not remove in Ohio because trans is on Alex's chart. I don't know where the cysts are,
They're
but
probably, I'm willing to bet they're ovarian.
that's what I was going to guess too.
Yeah.
Ovarian, yeah, because they're afraid of being told that they removed the ovaries. But yeah, I was wondering
Mhm.
about today in the news. The tennis star that had cancer. She had cervical cancer, and I can't think of her name at the moment. Somebody in the chat will give me her name because it's suddenly escaping me. But anyway, major tennis star. When she discovered she had cervical cancer, she had both of her breasts removed as a cancer preventative measure.
Mm.
So why can a woman remove her breasts as a cancer preventative measure, but she cannot remove her breasts to look more masculine?
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same procedure, and it's the same person, probably an adult making that decision,
Mm,
consenting to a procedure for their own body,
Mhm,
and like whatever your personal thoughts are should not matter
yeah,
because that is that person's body.
mhm,
And it's amazing that we've gotten to a place, and we've always been at this place, but we're just right now. It's very vocal of a place where other people want to make decisions for somebody else's body.
yeah. Some states have been proposing legislation banning estradiol, and it's like, yeah, okay, that's typically prescribed for trans women, but it's also prescribed for cis women who sometimes need some hormone replacement after menopause.
mhm, mhm. Now this law did have an exception for people who need hormones and so forth for other purposes. You
Which
just
well,
go
and
ahead.
the whole section about the exceptions to this bill included intersex children, and adults, intersex
Mhm,
people, which are
mhm.
often reassigned without their consent. So you can reassign a baby who has no ability consent, but that doesn't matter because you're making them more cis heteronormative in their eyes. So that's fine, but you can't do it with an adult or an older child with consent. And we're not even doing surgeries on children for gender transition. Uh, that's in much later down the road. Top surgery may be done in like mid to late teens, but some states consider 16 to be able to consent. But we're not like there's this straw man of people saying that we're doing genital surgeries on children, and we're not. The people doing genital
Mhm.
surgeries on children are people requiring intersex kids to be reassigned and routine infant circumcision. Like those
Yeah.
are the times that they're doing this. So it's definitely very hypocritical of a law.
Mhm. Yeah, I brought that up to someone on Twitter, that they were saying, "What you should never allow gender, uh, alteration on children." And I said, "So a boy's penis should not be altered in infancy?" And, "No, never. So circumcision should be outlawed?" "Well, that should be allowed." And I'm like, "Why? How is that different?" Because that affirms my religion.
Yeah, circumcision is a religious practice, and I don't see as it has any practical benefit, so I don't see why they do it anymore.
Yeah.
Maya Atkinson asks, "Did you see that Texas school board went against Abbott and is supporting gender affirming treatment, like allowing kids to use the bathroom with their corresponding gender?" I did not see that, but that is really good news. I am glad that there are some people that have some common sense and realize that, affirming people for who they are is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear at least some good news because man, it's been depressing these past few months, especially.
Beck says he's about to have his chopped off.
Me too. I'm working on fundraising for mine. Speaking of that,
Mm.
my fundraiser's this weekend. If anybody wants to help me get surgery.
I was wondering what that was. Yeah, I saw a post that you were having a number of different streams, but I didn't realize that there was a purpose behind them. I thought, "Oh, Ben's just got lots on his mind right now."
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it's for my top surgery, so it's kind of all weekend. Kind of, it's not all the way through because I need to sleep. Um,
Mhm, mhm.
but it's on my Twitter if people want to go look at that.
Okay, very good. I do have a link to, Ben's, channel in the description as well as Purple's channel. So you can go and check that out this weekend.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Purple, other thoughts on any other legislation, that's going on in the country that's targeting trans people?
To be honest, I have not been able to keep up on it much lately just because been dealing with things closer to home.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
Sloth Girl was in the hospital for 10 days, and that consumed quite a lot of my time.
Ben, what are some of your thoughts on what's going on in the country on rights?
There's a lot going on, and
Mm-hmm.
every day there's something new that comes up. But if people want to be up to date, there's somebody on Twitter by the name of Erin Reed. She is trans, and
Mhm.
she's constantly updating the community on new legislation that's coming out and all that. So if you want, it's kind of depressing sometimes because it's every day you're getting these updates, and the majority of them are negative. Some of them are positive, but she shares the different bills that are up for debate and all that. So if you want more information and to see where all this is going, you can go follow her. I'm looking at her page right now actually to see if there's anything that
I'm pretty
she
sure it
shared
was
recently.
her that I got this information from in the beginning, before I started looking into it myself. I'm pretty sure that's where I found it, was on her page.
I mean, going along with this topic and with the drag queen story hour thing, I think she spells it REED. When was
Yeah.
this one from? So there's, I don't know what this is, what specific bill this is a section of, but I think there are a few of these going around that drag shows are performances in
There
which
she is. That's
Yeah,
Erin
Yep.
Reed's page.
Yep. A performance in which a performer exhibits a gender identity that is different than the performer's gender assigned at birth using clothing, makeup, or other physical markers, and the performer sings, lip syncs, dances, or otherwise performs before an audience for entertainment. No individual under 19 years of age shall be present at a drag show. Any person 19 years of age or older who knowingly brings an individual under 19 years of age to a drag show shall be guilty of a class 1 misdemeanor. So you could take
Oh,
this as being
brother.
like, so trans people, or any cis people, no, anybody, you cannot be, you can't be trans in a play now. You can't be trans, I guess, at a karaoke bar either, because that's a performance. If you're dressing up as not your biological sex and you're at a karaoke bar, well, that's a drag show now.
Okay, now, question for you. When my daughter's high school put on the play Fiddler on the Roof, they did not have enough males try out for the play. So they asked some of the females to take male roles, and my daughter was one of them. She took a male role. Would that play then become a drag show?
Yeah, so it's
Because
drag.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And
Okay.
this often happens, like you say, like in high schools and community theater, that they
Oh,
often
this
can't find somebody appropriate for one part. Somebody of the other gender just seems to be more appropriate to play the part.
One thing I once the only real drag show I've ever been to was at church.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we our church had a theater ministry, and we would put on a skit once a month. And I was in charge of it for a while, but I really wasn't very good at it. I can't act at all. I'm terrible. But there was another woman who is a radio talk show host. She was quite good, and she put on a performance that sings about this love of her life, and then this guy comes out in drag at the end of it. And she said, "Oh yeah, this is always a fun thing to do, but you've got to find a guy that's willing to come out and drag to do it." And That's the only real drag show I've ever been to, was at a Baptist church.
Right, in the movie and production of Hairspray typically cast the mother as a man as the character. So I guess Hairspray is now drag. I mean, it kind of was, but now it's
Mhm.
inappropriate for anyone under the age of 19. And it's wild because yeah, you're taking an entire branch of art and saying that this is now off limits because some people that do this branch of art are inappropriate for children.
Yes.
Like, yeah, a lot of drag shows are not meant for kids, and usually they advertise it at a bar and they have age 21 and up or like age 18, but you got to make sure you're not drinking, like age limits. At
Mhm.
like every most drag shows at bars that I've been to, ID you on entry because they're at a club.
Mhm.
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 So like you can have theater that is inappropriate for young audiences, and you can have theater that is appropriate for young audiences. Like you can have that's why we have movies that are rated differently for different audiences.
I was gonna
Like,
say,
Exactly. Mhm.
wasn't
yeah.
that the whole idea of movie ratings, that they're not allowed to
Mhm.
sell a ticket to someone under 17 for certain movies?
Mhm. Yeah, on the show America's Got Talent, this past season, one of the performers was a pole dancer, and it was a completely family-friendly pole dance.
Mhm.
Her pole dance was beautiful. She was fully clothed. It was not erotic. It was acrobatic. It was athletic. It was beautiful, but it was also completely child-friendly. And
Mhm.
most time when you hear pole dance, you think, "Oh, no, pole dancers, that would be completely inappropriate for children," but this one was not.
Right, like that's more
Yeah.
akin to like aerial dance and that
Exactly.
kind of thing. Like, cause you're just using a pole instead of like silks or a hoop or whatever you're gonna use. So yeah, it's wild, like to ban an entire art form for
Mhm,
younger people just because some
Yeah.
people in that art form do it to be sexy.
mhm,
Well, that's
mhm.
I've seen some performances, like you say, about, pole dances that were not at all sexual, and it's really much more in the same category with, Cirque du Soleil.
Right, and that's funny too because like being someone who was assigned female, I of course was enrolled in dance classes for a lot of my childhood, and like there's some kids dance classes that end up getting like if you've ever watched like a kids hip hop class, or like I mean Dance Moms is a terrible example of a show, but like you've got kids, you got cis kids doing more sexualized performances and thinking too about like beauty pageants, like kids doing beauty pageants that are
Yes.
very
Mhm.
sexualized.
Oh,
Like so
yeah.
they have no problem sexualizing children. They
Mhm.
just don't like it when gay people sexualize adults in front of adults. So now those people can't just be dressed up in front of a kid. But it's okay if the kids are sexualized.
Back in the '60s, on Fridays, the Supreme Court justices used to watch porn because the rule on porn at that time was that it was illegal, but there was no cut and dry rule as to what constituted porn. And the rule of law was, well, I can't define it, but I know it when I see it. And so anyone that wanted to market movies that were erotic had to submit them to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court justices would watch movies on Fridays. Okay, this one's pornographic. No, you can't market that one. This one's okay. This one's art. You can market that one.
Wow, great way for people to make a living off people sending you porn to watch. Like, you're gonna pay me to watch the porn. I'm gonna
Mm.
get tax money from watching the porn.
Yeah, they finally decided that that was a waste of money, and they needed some way to define it, and they did. They finally came up with a definition of what constitutes porn.
I
Oh, hey,
agree,
kitty.
Kitty.
Yep. Well,
An
this did
interesting contrast that I heard about, was we talk about Canada's national health care, and there's a trans woman I know in Canada that when she was having her surgery, I don't know, I think they decided that there were likely to be some complications. And they decided that the best doctor to perform the surgery was in San Diego. So Canadian Healthcare paid to fly her to San Diego and paid for 2 nights in a hotel room for her to recover there before flying home.
wow. That is something that I find very aggravating, is that we do not have national health care in this country. Um, and I have a family member that when I brought this up said, well, we can't get national health care because it would cost $1 trillion to implement. And my family member is probably right. But when you weigh that against the lives that are lost due to the fact that we don't have it, and the amount of money that you'll save once it's been fully implemented, I think the savings are well worth it. Um,
Well, straight up, how much are we paying now for Medicare and Medicaid?
and private insurance, because we
Well, I
won't need
mean, just
private
how much
insurance.
is the government putting out for Medicare and Medicaid? And that would really all be part of paying for everyone having the national health care.
I'm looking it up right now. Medicare spending was 900.8 billion in 2021, and Medicaid was 734 billion. So we're looking at 1.6 billion for 1 year. But another thing that I saw that is really I think is important is looking at the life expectancies. The life expectancy in the United States is declining, and we're the only industrialized country where the life expectancy is declining. And it's because we don't have healthcare. We don't have good healthcare,
Mhm.
and the reason we don't have good healthcare isn't because we don't have good doctors. We have lots
Yeah.
of great doctors. We just have a lot of people that can't afford them.
Yep.
Yep.
And a lot of people that can't afford routine medical visits. So then they wind up in the emergency room when something goes wrong.
And we have a whole bunch of qualified medical school graduates that can't get into a residency spot because they're building more medical schools and taking more students, but not making more residency seats. And a lot of the students that don't match into residency are not, I mean, sure, there are some people that have low qualifications and just kind of have some red flags, but that's not the majority. A lot of them are very top-notch students that applied for something maybe too competitive, just out of their reach, and then they didn't match because they wanted something like neurosurgery, and there weren't enough neurosurgery spots, but their scores were competitive, their research was competitive, everything about them was a competitive applicant. They're totally qualified to be a resident, but they don't get to because there aren't enough residency spots. Even in things like family medicine, there aren't enough. I think last year, we'll see what the match is this year for civilian, but I think last year 8,000 people, 8,000 doctors did not get a spot in residency, which like we could help so many more people if we just let them get their training.
Burke says, gasp, our taxes would go up even though our costs would go down.
Well,
Yeah,
we can fix that too just by putting a slight tax on people who make over $1 billion a year. But
Maya says 8,000. That's insane. Yeah, it
8,000
is.
qualified doctors last year
Mhm.
did not get a spot.
Yeah, and that's because Obama asked the medical schools to please open more slots, but he didn't have the government make more residency slots, and the government controls the residencies.
Yep, they're federally funded.
Mm-hmm. We have such a messed up system.
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Well, and honestly, most people don't understand the medical system. I mean, it just from knowing Ben these last couple of years, how much more I've learned about it. And it's like the whole thing about the residency system. It's like I had no clue how any of that worked.
Yeah, and I'm hoping we'll see this hopefully in the future once I get out of the military. But I want to start a nonprofit, hopefully like completely secular nonprofit organization that does like it's basically a mobile clinic that can go to like rural towns. And we'll see what kind of loopholes we'll have to work through with all these with these trans bills. Maybe we'll work something in there about mobile gender affirming care. But
Another major advantage of national health care is if COVID had hit while we had national health care, when we started having crises in certain areas of the country, the government would have had the option of sending doctors and nurses to areas that were hard
Yep.
hit.
Mhm.
But because we've got all these private systems, the government can't do that.
yeah,
Johnny says eliminate the private health insurance companies. Not unless we have a national healthcare system. Without a national healthcare system, we need the private health insurance companies.
unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Kitty said many people stay in jobs they hate for insurance. We'd have
Yes.
more entrepreneurs if healthcare was not a factor in employment. Yeah.
Well, and that it really lets a lot of companies really abuse their employees because employees know that they can't risk quitting and losing the healthcare benefits, especially if it's people who have children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. At least they made it easier for you to change jobs and change employers. It used to be that healthcare didn't always translate. You might have a gap period. But Obamacare, that is one of the things that they fixed. And that was one real relief, is that it is much easier to change jobs now. Johnny says the UK taxes for healthcare are also combined with their version of Social Security, so the number looks higher on the surface. Beelzebub says life as an anti-theist communist provides a hell of a lot of clarity, doesn't it? I don't know. I'm not a communist.
Yeah, I am pretty comfortable with being considered a socialist at this point, though.
Beelzebub says Obamacare is a joke. I've never had ease in changing jobs. I have seen a lot of people who have had that ease because they don't have to worry about pre-existing conditions not being covered under their new job. That was the major change.
Which, by the way, was something that the Republicans tried to repeal 2 years ago.
Yes, they did. They did. Mm-hmm. Jenny's here. Hey, Jenny.
Hey, Jenny.
I'm so very sorry for being late.
It's okay.
No, it's not. But all right, let's go on. I'll listen and catch up.
You're here
Okay.
now.
Okay. I don't know if you're aware of the bill that is the subject for today.
Oklahoma, yes, very much.
Well, there's a couple of different Oklahoma bills, and the one that I wanted to focus is on one that I actually had to really search and search and search to find a text copy of it, because it's not the one that most people are talking about. But this one, I think, is far more reaching than the one most people are talking about. Most people are talking about the one that bans transgender care for anyone under 26.
Uh-huh.
But this one bars funding for all doctors and their affiliates and hospitals that
Yeah.
provide any gender affirming care to anyone.
Yes, I'm familiar with that one too.
Okay, you are familiar with this
It's
one.
completely
Okay.
criminal of them to do that, and to
Yeah.
separate it from the other bill, so that they can sneak it through on its own is just reprehensible.
Exactly. It's everyone's hiding it under that other bill. But this one says no provider shall be eligible for reimbursement through Medicaid or any other federal or state program other than if they provide any form of gender affirming care. I just don't see how that can even be proposed and we aren't all up in arms screaming about it.
Well, it's been very well hidden.
Exactly.
Even Aaron Ross is her last
Erin
name?
Morn, yeah, we were talking
Yeah.
about her.
Aaron in the morning.
Mhm.
Yeah, she even only covers it a little bit,
Mhm.
and she's usually on top of everything.
She's the one where I found it from.
Hmm.
I never would have even seen it if she hadn't posted it.
Yeah, that's the only place I've ever seen it.
Ugh. So, as trans people, do you feel like the world is trying to, or at least the government or the country is trying to get rid of you?
Yes.
Well, the Republicans definitely are.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
100%. I'm beginning to start to think the battle may be lost.
I don't think it's lost, but I don't think it's going to be one in our lifetime, Jenny. I think Ben's going to be our age when things finally turn around. I think it's going to be the same as what happened with gay people. I think it's going to take some martyrs, and when people see that people are dying and people are dying needlessly, that they're going to finally wake up and say, "Oh, these are people. These are real people, and this is a problem."
Unfortunately, what happened? I'm sorry. Go ahead,
No,
Jay.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
What seems to happen so much of the time is that nobody takes it seriously until it's someone they know personally, until it affects their family.
You are much more positive than I am, Granny.
I guess it's because. Go ahead.
Thinking about that Ben would be the person to be around when it's fixed. That's assuming that Ben is not exterminated like the rest of us are going to be.
Good point. Good point. I'm thinking particularly of Matthew Shepard. I think Matthew Shepard was a turning point for a lot of people when it comes to gay people.
Yes, I would agree.
It certainly brought a lot of the issues to the forefront to people who really hadn't given any thought before then.
Maya makes a really good point, though. How many martyrs did it take before abortion was legalized? They just looked the other way. And Maya's right. Yeah, there were hundreds of thousands of women that died before they legalized abortion. And now that it's illegal again, I don't think it's going to be the same as it was then. I was really afraid that we were going back to the 50s, but because of the abortion drugs that are now available through the mail, I think that the coat hanger abortion days are not going to be as big a deal as they were back then. Thoughts, Ben?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I think, I don't know, my opinions might be a little bit more optimistic in that, at least with this particular issue, we have, and granted, I'm not saying they're doing enough. They're absolutely not doing enough to advocate, but we at least have the medical consensus that is on our side, and we have the major medical boards on our side, they should be doing more. They need to be fighting harder because I'm not seeing a whole lot from them. But we do have some organizing bodies that are being active about it. So like I'm not immediately hopeful, but I think, I don't know, I have a lot of depressing thoughts a lot of days, but I think there are some big changes like that, like compared to a lot of what like the LGBTQ community has gone through in the past. I think we have some assets now that maybe they didn't have before. So I mean, we'll see how it goes. I'm not going to say which way or the other because I'm not entirely sure. But there's at least a couple things that are at least a small improvement.
I don't feel that, in particular, the ACLU, who has supposedly been standing behind us all this time, and especially when they have somebody as absolutely brilliant as Gillian Brandstetter working for them, that they haven't been showing up at these state houses and screaming and yelling at the top of their lungs in testimony or during hearings and that sort of thing. Now I realize that the state gets to set who they pick and choose to be at those. But then I would have expected to hear word out of the ACLU that they were rejected from being that sort of testimony. And I haven't, which tells me that they haven't been there looking to get on there to do that. And that's a lot of what I think allows these law to pass, is that the people who have no opinion, or even our supporters, but technologically ignorant, are going to go along with the bullshit because they don't know any better, because they've never been taught any better. And we need those experts to be up there and saying, hey, look, these are lies. This is bullshit. There never has been an attack by a trans woman or a drag queen. It's all these 475 Republican politicians, this 205-page document from the Southern Baptist Convention that's been doing it. And they don't listen.
Aunt Jer has a comment that got me to thinking. And Aunt Jer says, haven't people already been dying, and don't we already have martyrs? And the answer is yes, you do. And I was trying to figure out what's the difference. Why did Matthew Shepard become so famous, and some of the trans people who have died because they were denied care have not? And I think the answer is how the deaths were treated. And I'm thinking specifically, I recently watched the movie Till. Have any of you seen that?
No.
No.
Okay. It's about the story. It's the story of Emmett Till. Emmett Till was that 14-year-old boy from Chicago that was brutally murdered in Mississippi because he whistled at a white woman in the late 1950s or early 60s. And when I watched the movie, the thing that I had not realized until I saw the movie was what his mother did. And that was that she insisted that he have an open casket funeral. And the world saw just how badly brutalized and mutilated he was. And that's the same with Matthew Shepard. People saw the photographs. People saw just how badly brutalized and mutilated he was. And I think that's what it takes, not numbers. That's something else I saw recently. People have a hard time empathizing with large numbers. It's easier for us to empathize with a single person that's been horribly mutilated.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the numbers are meaningless to most people. And that's really what I was saying, was that it really has to go back to it being a person they know. Because being somebody from across the country that you read about really doesn't mean anything. It doesn't really hit most people until it's somebody in their own hometown.
And Aunt Jer is right. Right-wingers treat trans suicide as just teens throwing a temper tantrum.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't catch. I had to read it, and yeah, that's unfortunately so true. But it goes back to my point that we're dealing with an uneducated public, both
Mhm.
both in terms of the citizenry who is going to support these guys and go, yeah, yeah, get them, those perverts. But also the legislators who are supposed to be people who take the time to look at issues and to learn about those issues before they make votes on them, and they don't.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
look at the guy who the story is just coming out. Although it's happened a week or so ago, of the the Republican candidate who lost his battle for a legislative seat in Arizona or New Mexico. New Mexico. God damn it! I'm sorry. Um, and he's been arrested
Oh,
for
that one. Yeah, that was New
for
Mexico. Yep.
yeah, for
Mhm.
paying people to shoot at the houses and office buildings of Democrats that he believes are part of the big steal,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that how his election was stolen, and
Mhm.
and they're taking up firearms to shoot and kill people. You know,
Mhm.
oh no, shoot at the buildings. Well, some of those bullets went through bedrooms right next to a 10-year-old daughter.
Mhm.
You know, and
Mhm.
things like this. These people are freaking nuts, and
Yeah.
I just don't see much positive in it anymore.
No, I don't either. Um, the only good that I see is the Republican Party starting to separate and starting to fall apart, and some people realizing that some have gone too far.
They had their chance though, and
Mhm.
they sided with the insane group.
Mhm.
That's what this whole Matthew or Ken McCarthy thing was all about. Is he was supposedly, he's still nuts, but he was supposedly on the moderate side of the whole thing, and he sucked up.
Mhm.
I think we're finished.
That being said, and I think the fact that the internet was around when Matthew was killed helped get the information out there. True. Very true.
Yeah. I think what the Republicans are facing right now, one commentator had pointed out that no Republican can win a primary without Trump's endorsement because they need the Trump voters. However, at the same time, no Republican candidate can win a federal election with Trump's endorsement because they can't get any moderate votes.
Interesting. Interesting.
I think it's not useless to argue about Trump because he is indeed real and he's here and he does have an influence like you described. But Trump is not the problem. Trump is the trigger and the symptom.
Yes. 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 You're absolutely
Right.
right.
Yeah, it's just the Republicans are dealing with this infection within their party, and they don't know how to get rid of the infection and still have any chance to win another election.
They need a vaccine. Oh Lord.
And Burke is right. The Republicans made a Faustian bargain to get a majority on the Supreme Court. Not just the Supreme Court. Most federal judges at every level have all been appointed by Republicans. I did not see this until I read Andrew Seidel's book about how the Supreme Court has been weaponized. And he pointed out that it's not just the Supreme Court, but all the federal courts
Mhm.
have been taken over.
This is true. Some progress has been made in the other direction
Hmm.
because at this point, Biden has nominated more judges to federal courts than Trump has.
Oh, really?
But
I was not aware of that.
there's
Well,
so many
yeah,
more to go.
right.
Hmm.
That doesn't account for all the ones nominated by previous Republican presidents that are
Right.
still on the boards.
Right. There's still some appointed by Bush. There's even a few still appointed by Reagan.
Something that doesn't get talked about. Maybe you talked about this before I got in here, but I'm concerned very much so for the kids in particular who are going to be forced to detransition. And what is this on and off crap with the medications and everything going to do to their bodies. It's like if you're on an antidepressant, you don't just take you off it instantly. And we all know how much of an emotional effect there are from hormones and proper therapy as well. And then to lose it all.
Ben, what would happen to a child that has to go through that?
It would be definitely what Jenny's saying, a lot of the more psychological effects. Because if this is something that has, I know we were talking before the show about why gender diverse people are not mentally ill, like certain criteria for what constitutes mental illness. But like with gender diverse people, if you use the medication and methods of transition to remove the external stressors, because it's external stress, not internal stress. It And you had somebody that went through improvement, and they were suddenly like doing better. They finally love themselves, and now you take that away. The mental health concerns that we were trying to avoid with the transition, now you're leaving them at probably even higher risk, because now they know that it worked for them and you're taking them off of it. Physiologically, I'm not sure, but it would depend on what they've already had, because if you think about somebody who has gone through bottom surgery already, they would be missing hormone production of their own, so they would need some sort of HRT supplement, whether it be cross-sex hormones or what they would normally have. So it could definitely be harmful to them. And I agree with Jenny that I think like the people I'm most worried for are the kids that have no say in this. Like,
Yeah.
as I know, they're targeting older and older people, but I think adults have the best chance at still getting healthcare, but kids have no choice in this matter, and they have no say. Like, they have no ability to really go to the government and like make these changes. They're not voting yet, so they're just caught in the crossfire.
Oh, I agree. I think it's teenagers who are going to be at highest risk here.
Ben, what I would be really interested in your opinion on how valid you think the argument of 25 being the magic number for psychological stability and learning and stuff.
I think that, like, while it may be true that you're at a better age of maturity, then I don't think it's a valid argument to say don't give people the ability to consent to healthcare at this age, because especially since you have such a gray area anyway with consent at that age, because you supposedly can't consent until you're 18 in a lot of places. But if you are emancipated for some other reason, or if you have a child, if you get pregnant, you are now able to consent for your baby, but you're but you still wouldn't be able to consent to yourself if you were you're the exact same 16-year-old, or the exact same even 13, 14-year-old. Unfortunately, now that's normal for a lot of people right now, talking about that young of people not being able to access things like abortion. But you got these kids that they're the same exact kid. Their brain did not change into somebody else, somebody more mature, just because they got pregnant. But you're gonna let them be a parent, and you're gonna make them carry a pregnancy to term, and then keep I mean, they can supposedly give the baby up for adoption, but like, a lot of people feel no choice but to keep the baby and raise it as their own. And like, are they ready at age 13, 14 to raise a child? Apparently you think they're old enough to raise a kid, but they're not old enough to decide if they're a boy or a girl or something else. Like, the level
Well,
of of responsibility here is totally different.
The other thing I think about is the hypocrisy when it comes to other medical issues. If a 20-year-old wants to undergo cancer treatment, spinal treatment, I want my broken arm set, please. No, you're 24, you can't consent to medical treatment.
Right, and the other thing too is and with younger people even, there's the talk of, well, kids kids shouldn't have consent to all this stuff. And like, yeah, there's a certain line of like, when do we consider somebody being able to be autonomous in their medical decision making?
Mhm,
But they're
mhm,
not autonomously making this decision most of the time. Like, we're talking about families who are affirming their children, and in pretty much every medical scenario, parents have the ability to consent for their children, even if
mhm,
it's
mhm.
something that you don't think to be medically correct. Like, unfortunately, um, you can have the debates of, is it okay to deny your children vaccines because you're the parent and you get to consent to whatever your kid gets? So you have parents that should be able to consent to things for their children, even if they're not at an
The,
age to
the,
consent.
the courts have made rulings. I remember hearing years ago from various Christian Science arguments that a child needs a certain type of cancer treatment, for example, and the parents say, no, God'll fix this. And the doctors and things sue and say,
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm,
take the rates away from these parents because they're going to kill this child. And the courts say, yes, you're right.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, so consent is already such a gray area with minors. So, like, and that's the thing, like, these arguments are people just trying to make everything black and white, but it's never going to be black and white. And that's why I made this kind of rage post on Twitter a couple times, but saying that, like, if you're not, like, if you're gonna step in and try to make medical decisions for somebody else, like, I'd like to see you come to clinic, take a full list of patients, and take full responsibility for every decision you make for them. Because you're gonna make all these decisions, and you're not gonna see any of the burden for what you do. And it's scary to have that much responsibility to say, whatever I do, whatever I tell that person, every piece of communication with that person could end up hurting them if it goes the wrong way. But they don't have to see any of that burden. So of course it's very easy for them to say it's just a black and white issue. But you know how gray it is when you start stepping into those realms of responsibility. And that's why, like, I see this huge push against expertise, and it's been happening forever. Um, but the fact that my ignorance is as good as your knowledge, and like, yeah, there's certain things where you can you can recognize bad medical practice as a layperson, but your ability to make decisions does not really go beyond yourself in a medical setting. Like, you yourself and the people you are in charge for, and if you see a problem within medical care for somebody else, like, that's a case you don't intervene and you don't make their decisions for them. You end up saying, hey, this doctor's doing something inappropriate. I think let's go talk to the medical board. Like, let's report this person. The people who are experts can weigh in on if this was appropriate or if it wasn't. But like, I've had people even like today trying to say that, well, I'm a layperson and I know this thing, so therefore, like, I should be able to make your medical decisions for you. Like, no, no, you shouldn't. Stay out of this.
We had a question a while ago, which I've been holding. It's a question for Ben, and Ben, I think you've addressed this earlier, but
Yeah.
I think we need to answer it again.
Oh yeah,
Is
I talked about it backstage,
Yeah. Oh,
so
okay.
I don't think on stream.
Okay. So let's go ahead and answer. Is dysphoria a symptom or a disorder? I know it's not always present, and it's often used specifically to gain gender affirming care due to healthcare and insurance protocols.
Right. So yeah, dysphoria is a symptom. Not everybody has it. Uh, a lot of people experience gender euphoria and not gender dysphoria. So it's a result of the external pressure, whether the external pressure is your body or if it's society. Um, but right now, currently, as the ICD-10 and DSM-5 stand. They use the terms to get people access, and we're realizing now how problematic that is. And there's a lot of data that I've been looking into that has been published that demonstrates that we need a different classification system for how we describe this, how we describe gender diversity at all, and how we treat access to this. So I'm actually going to do a stream in the future talking about the ICD-11 and where they're going and what the data says about how we're going to classify this. But yeah, the whole medical consensus now is that it's inappropriate to use this symptom as a means to make a pathology of gender diversity. So, but currently in the current state, unfortunately, it's the only way really to access care for a lot of people. So we'll see what it looks like in the future.
Jenny, you brought up a point earlier that I wanted to talk about some more, and I can't remember what it was now.
I'm concerned about the precedent that the up to 25-year-old thing can create. In Kentucky, apparently somebody fixed the or got the ferry company a couple new donkeys so that they can get word back and forth over the Mississippi to Kentucky and stuff. They're beginning to copy this template for this exact same law in Kentucky that Arkansas is proposing, except they've added things to it. They're basically going to ban little procedures like vasectomy, tubal ligation, any kind of breast reduction, and actually a whole bunch. I don't remember the whole list, but a whole bunch of things that we consider today that have nothing to do with gender dysphoria or gender confirmation surgeries or anything like that. But because it has to do with a penis or a vagina or something kind of close, they're all up in arms about it and are trying to ban a whole bunch of things.
Really?
Yeah, and
oh my gosh,
Erin has that on her list as well. I would strongly welcome you to go see it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
will have to go find that.
that's the same lines as Johnny's comment earlier about the ovarian cysts and surgeons not willing to operate on it. Because there are plenty of times where the cysts are so big that you can't save the ovary and you have to take it out completely. And yeah, those people wouldn't be able to get their cysts removed then. And that keeps people in a lot of pain. And it's definitely very harmful.
Ben, can you see a scenario where a doctor would say, fuck this law, this person is going to die, I'm going to do something, let's go to court on it, but I'm going to do her first?
They did here in Alabama.
They did. I didn't hear that.
That's okay. There was a law passed here in Alabama that gender affirming care is illegal for anyone under 19 because 19 is the age of majority here. And the doctors got together and they said, we cannot comply with this law and comply with our Hippocratic oath. We have to choose one or the other. You've put us between a rock and a hard place where we have to choose between complying with the law and complying with our Hippocratic oath. We can't do this. And the court agreed, and the law has been under an injunction ever since.
That's great news. I don't think I'll survive it, but I was thinking more in terms of just the generalized topic of bodily autonomy.
Okay.
And states making decisions to criminalize medicine. Like say in ectopic pregnancy, that this woman has got to have this removed or she is going to die.
Yeah, I don't
say I'm going to take care of her because she's going to die if I don't. Maybe she will.
I don't know any specific cases, but I'm sure it's happened. I know personally doctors who would do that, who would put themselves on the line for that. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's been happening and we're just not hearing about it.
Mm-hmm. I wouldn't. I'm real anxious to see a test case, but I'm also not, because I know how horrible that means. Somebody's life is gone. It's so upsetting.
Yeah.
If you're interested in Arkansas and Alabama and Florida and there's two others are on the list of top 5 worst states to be transgender in.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ohio's up there too.
Ohio's up there. Oklahoma's up there.
Oklahoma, that's it. Thanks.
Yeah. Florida's up there.
I would like to get Robin out of this state. But Robin is so resistant to change. Plus, Robin's boyfriend is here, and until we get Robin's boyfriend to move, but Robin's boyfriend is trans too, so they really both need to leave.
You should just both move, yeah.
Mhm. And if they left, I would too.
How old are they both?
They're both 21.
It sounds like they're going to have to, because this law is going to pass.
No, the law in Alabama already passed, and that's 19,
I'm
and
sorry.
they're both 21, so they're fine. Yeah,
I
this law for 26 is in Oklahoma. Yeah,
No, I keep thinking you're in Arkansas. I'm sorry.
that's okay.
All of them are following the template, and all of them are going to engage the same argument in law in their states. None of these are original thought. Republicans aren't really capable of original thought, and so they just copy templates from the lobbyists and things like that, which is what they're doing in this whole effort from Christian Family. I get so flustered when I read these names, and I know them, but I get mad, and they get turned off in my brain. Family Research Council and those sorts of are the people who've written these and are funding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then they get picked up by these model law people and distributed to every state and so forth. And yeah. And they just get copied and pasted and moved from state to state. I don't know. We've just got to find a way to reach people and get people to understand what's really going on. And I don't know how to do that.
I would like to see somebody try to establish a formalized, a formalized coalition nationwide of all the LGBT centers around the country to begin to create some sort of national structure to ourselves. We don't have anything, and the right wingers have everything. And that's one of the reasons that we're not fighting this well, is because we don't have a central committee.
That'd be good.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying that'd be definitely a good thing to do.
Purple, what are your thoughts?
I do feel I'm pretty much out of my element on a lot of this stuff, but I don't get the things about how they can make these laws about healthcare of people who are over 18. Because these people are legal adults. So how can the government be dictating to legal adults what healthcare they're allowed to get?
They do it with abortion too.
They do it with alcohol too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but how can you say a procedure is legal for somebody who's 26, but not for somebody who's 24?
Well, because they're not mature enough at 24.
But at 24, they're still a legal adult.
Yeah.
True. I don't see how the law can put, a dividing line there.
Well, they do it because there is evidence that the brain continues to develop until age 25. And so there has been some push in legal circles to get rid of the death penalty for anyone under 26. Because one of the arguments is that because the brain is not fully developed until age 26, that even a 25-year-old may not fully appreciate the consequences of what they are doing if they commit murder. And there's some truth to that. And that's really where this is coming from. Frankly, I'd like to see us get rid of the death penalty, period.
Oh,
It is
absolutely.
completely unfair.
Yeah, that's a
Our
separate
justice
topic.
system is,
I've been trying to avoid going into the thing of the puberty blockers, as far as whenever they're talking about teenagers transitioning and that.
The-
But that again is a topic that could easily take a whole hour on.
Mhm.
the laws I've read, or proposed laws, say no puberty blockers, but they don't give a generic name. Now I know that both finasteride and spironolactone are used for other reasons in the human body.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't the doctor prescribe them for that?
They can. These bills do make exceptions for other uses for these drugs. They don't ban the drugs entirely. They just ban them for the use of gender affirming care.
Right, an off-brand use.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah, actually,
use.
well, the spirulactone is one of the testosterone blockers they're giving me, and they have now also prescribed it for sloth girl
Mm.
because it also blocks some of the side effects of some of the chemo drugs.
Mhm. Mhm.
Interesting.
There's a lot of drugs that have multiple usages because they, what's a side effect to one person is the effect you're looking for someone else.
Yeah, it's almost as if pharmacology isn't a black and white thing, and like people go to years of school to learn how to prescribe these.
Yeah.
And it's almost as if those people should be making the decisions about who gets it, not people that have never studied this a day in their lives.
Hey,
Crazy
Ben,
concept.
I'm not going to stand for you putting down our legislators like that anymore. They know exactly what they're doing.
Well, I wish the legislations had the common sense that, laws like this couldn't be written without like at least two medical professionals in the team writing it.
Mhm. Mhm.
No, that's not true. That's not true at all. These laws were written, the templates were written by people like the Family Research Council. They
Yeah.
don't use a physician. They use
No, that's I'm saying I wish they would. I know, most
Purple's
of them,
saying
it
there
seems
should be
they
a
don't
law saying
consult
they
the
have
doctor
to.
at all.
okay. Oh,
Yeah.
all right. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
But then who picks who that person is?
Yeah, that's the thing. There are plenty of
Yeah.
anti-trans doctors, unfortunately.
And they say well, yeah, we talked to a trans expert. Okay, but you talk to somebody who's never seen a trans client in their life, whose practice is out of a
It should be like
side shopping center next to the Pizza Hut.
it should be like in a court case when you get an expert witness, you have to prove during that court case that they're an expert witness. Like you have to get like they should have to do that.
Lay a
Like
foundation.
yeah, they should have to do that for these bills.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I mean, I'm certainly not an expert, but I qualify as more of an expert than any of these legislators.
It's like if you brought somebody on, like for a criminal court case, and you needed a forensic pathologist, but you brought in a dermatologist. That's not going to be acceptable. Like no one would say that. Like, but we got a doctor. No, but they would argue that that's not an appropriate witness. That's not an expert witness for this case. Like, we
Mhm.
have ways legally to require that. So it's funny that. I mean, it's not funny. It's intentionally done this way so they don't have to be accountable. But
And Maya's right. There should be, because you got the same people trying to pass laws legislating for ectopic pregnancies that they must be reimplanted into the uterus,
yeah.
Yeah.
not realizing that is not technologically feasible.
It's not feasible and it's dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, considering the age that an ectopic is discovered and needed, how are they going to identify which cells are the zygote?
Yeah, and you might just be inducing sepsis.
Oh yeah, that too.
Like, Because like the embryo when it's growing, it's got a protective membrane on it, separating it from the outside. Once you break that, you're introducing all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah.
That's why they like to use Rand Paul as an expert for so many things, because
Yeah, because he's an ophthalmologist, right? Like he doesn't.
no, an optometrist.
Oh, an optometrist.
An optometrist, yes.
Oh, that's
but
even
he's
better.
a doctor, so therefore he sees the truth.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not even a physician. He's an optometrist.
Oh gosh. Well, we
Yeah.
are getting to the end of our time, so I'm going to let each of you have a chance to express any closing thoughts you might have, shill for anything that you would like to shill for, and Jenny will let you go first.
Okay. Folks, you've heard me rant about this before, and I would usually close with saying the time is coming, that this is going to really, really matter, that you get involved. The time is here, and your friends are going to start to disappear pretty soon. And you may be thinking I'm crazy about this, but some of us were also yelling about Ron Reagan bringing these kinds of religious people into it back in the 80s, and no one listened. But here they are.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to happen. We've got to do something now. If you don't live in Oklahoma and you go to Google and you jump on a street view, you can find the name of a street and you can find an address on it and you can find the zip code from it. So when you can write that legislator that has nothing to do with your state and pose as a citizen, you can have an address and a zip code to refer to. Nobody checks those. But if you don't have one that's a legitimate address, because the computer can check if it's a legitimate address, they won't even accept your email. So why cheat and steal? Why not? There you are. Get dirty. This is not going to happen. This is not going to be a clean fight anymore. It's the clean fights are over.
Okay. Purple.
Yeah, well, I would just second what Jenny said, that we really can't afford to take the high ground. You know, we have to fight this at every level, because too many people stand to die if things aren't turned around in a hurry.
Yeah. Yeah. And Purple, remind us again what times your shows are on?
Oh, I just do kind of open room chats every Wednesday at noon and Thursday at 10 p.m. Central Time.
Okay. Okay. Ben.
My final thoughts are, if you're not qualified to make medical decisions for somebody else, don't. And and yeah, everything that these other two have said, get involved. We need every voice in this fight, and that's kind of the best wrap up. You can find me this week if you want to help a specific trans person. I'm doing a fundraiser for myself this week because I have a top surgery date in April, and I got to pay for it. So if we can even get to like half of the goal for the total surgery, then like that will help me a lot, because anything that I can't fundraise basically is coming out of debt. So I'd love to not go more into debt on this, but
how much are
that's
you needing to raise?
the surgery total is 10,000.
Okay.
We've raised 3,500 right now. If we can get up to 5,000, like that will help a lot, like infinitely, because I know at least I have some money in student loans coming that I can put towards it, but I'd also like to have that like for to live. So so that's this weekend. The first stream is Friday. I'm playing Jackbox on Twitch at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. And then on Saturday, I'm doing kind of two separate split streams, because Transatlantic is on Saturday this week. Because Aaron Reed is actually going to be on Transatlantic this week on Saturday.
Right.
So yeah, so my stream, I got Medical Myths before that, starting at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. with Forrest Valkai. We're talking about
Oh, cool.
creationism. Yeah, we're talking about creationism in the classroom because Answers in Genesis made an article. Oh well, they published a proposal about how to teach indoctrination in anatomy class. So we're gonna debunk that, and
That sounds
then
cool.
we'll send everybody over to Transatlantic after that, and then after they get done, I'll be back on Twitch, and then the next day I'll also be on Twitch. So everybody, yeah, I'll be streaming. Medical Myths will be on YouTube, and then everything else will be on Twitch. So I have a stream agenda that's going around on Twitter that I put in the different chat groups, and I've also shared on my page. So you can find out
And-
more about that there.
I want to ask everybody to seriously consider and actually do help Ben. I, as one of the people who had to pay for every penny of their own medical bills before insurance even thought we were human beings, it's an impossible task to save up this kind of money and still live and have other responsibilities. Please help Ben.
Can I respond to Johnny's comment? I know this is sarcastic, but I have to give a sarcastic response back. My friends, so we're all going to residency, right? So my friends that are going into surgery and anesthesiology, they've got like 5 to 7 years before they're going to be able to do anything independently. So I'm not quite willing to wait that long.
Don't you have a Bible study tomorrow as well?
Oh, I do. I forgot to show that. Yes. We have tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern time. Granny is going to be there.
Yep.
And a few other people. We're doing this lovely, which I got to finish it tonight. We're doing this lovely Bible study. It's a women's Bible study called True Woman 101, it's exactly what it sounds like. And we're talking this week about what the man's role is, because men are better than everybody else. So come listen to that discussion. Granny's going to have a lot of good points. I'm excited.
I do. I have a lot to say on this one.
Okay, what channel and time is that?
That's on my YouTube channel at 9 p.m. Eastern time. And I think the confirmed people, Godless Granny, Overprotected Atheist, and Reason to Doubt, and Pumpkin J. I think those are all confirmed. And then we might have some other people also showing up, but I'm not sure.
Logan Fisher says, I'll be 30 and still in school.
That's rough.
Yeah, it is. Okay. And next week on my channel, Art Against Ignorance will be here as my guest. And we will be talking about music, something I know absolutely nothing about.
Oh, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know nothing about music either, so he's usually the one I go to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, and for a scripted video this week, I am doing an interview that Sean McDowell had with Dr. Marriott on deconversion. Why do people deconvert? And that one might possibly be a little late because I have a TPR hearing that is scheduled to go all day tomorrow and half the day on Thursday. And so if we take the full time, I will not get a chance to even start editing that one until Thursday afternoon. So that one may be a little late coming out. With that, thank you, everyone in the chat. You've added a great deal to this stream. And thank you so much to Jenny and Ben and Purple for coming to help me out with this topic. This is very important, and we need to let people know that transgender people are people and that they deserve the same rights as everyone else.
Well, okay.
Bye, everyone. Live your
Good
life.
night, all.